Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto became the new Shinju and god of tailed beasts and fall in love with Kaguya and Kurami. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Divine Inheritance. The Valley of End lay silent under the cold moonlight, ancient stone faces of Hashirama and Madara watching over a landscape permanently scarred by generations of conflict. Water cascaded endlessly between the statues, the sound masking Naruto Uzumaki's labored breathing as he knelt at the water's edge. His orange and black jacket hung in tatters around his frame, evidence of the grueling 3-day mission he'd just completed. 6 months had passed since the 4th Great Ninja War. 6 months of rebuilding, mourning, and attempting to establish a fragile peace. But something felt wrong in the world's very fabric, something Naruto couldn't articulate but sensed in his bones. He dipped his bandaged hand into the cool river, watching ripples distort his reflection. Whisker marks on his cheeks seemed deeper tonight, more pronounced. Behind him, Kurama's chakra stirred restlessly within its seal. "You feel it too, don't you?" Naruto whispered, not expecting the immediate surge of unease that flowed from the 9 tails. Since dawn yesterday, Kurama's voice rumbled through his consciousness. Something pulls at the boundaries. Something ancient stirs. Naruto closed his eyes, extending his sensory abilities as Kurama channeled chakra through their shared pathways. The enhancement allowed him to perceive far beyond normal human limitations, a skill he'd been refining since the war's end. Tonight, the sensation was different. The natural energy felt brittle. Chakra currents that normally flowed smooth as silk now snagged and twisted like fraying rope. "It's coming from below," Naruto murmured, eyes snapping open. Deep underground. Without hesitation, he formed a shadow clone to report back to Konoha, then channeled chakra to his feet. The stone face of the first Hokage accepted his weight as he descended the cliff in controlled bounds, moving with the fluid grace that had become second nature after years of combat. At the base of the waterfall, concealed behind the thundering curtain of water, Naruto discovered what his senses had detected: a hairline fracture in the rock face, barely visible to the naked eye but pulsing with ominous energy. "Be cautious, Naruto," Kurama warned as the young shinobi pressed his palm against the fissure. "That chakra signature, it's familiar." The stone was warm beneath Naruto's fingers, vibrating with a frequency that made his teeth ache. "Yeah, I recognize it too. It feels like..." The ground suddenly shifted beneath him, the fracture widening to reveal a tunnel bathed in pale violet light. The movement wasn't natural, it was responsive, as though the earth itself had recognized his chakra and granted him passage. "Well, that's not suspicious at all," Naruto muttered, summoning a Rasengan to illuminate the darkness as he stepped cautiously into the tunnel. The passage descended at a steep angle, ancient roots from the valley's trees penetrating through the stone ceiling in gnarled patterns. "This place reeks of Otsutsuki chakra," Kurama growled. "Specifically Kaguya," Naruto finished, recognizing the distinctive energy signature they had encountered during the final battle. "But that's impossible. We sealed her away completely." The tunnel abruptly widened into a vast underground chamber that defied natural formation. Smooth walls arc, head over head in perfect geometric patterns, inscribed with symbols that predated modern shinobi writing. At the center stood a small dais where a single object hovered, a fractured sphere of crystalline material, rotating slowly in midair, emanating the violet light that illuminated the entire space. Naruto approached cautiously, sage mode activating instinctively as he analyzed the floating object. "It's a seal fragment," he whispered, recognizing components similar to those used in the 6 paths, Shibaku Tensei that had imprisoned Kaguya. "But it's breaking down." "Impossible," Kurama snarled, his voice tinged with unmistakable concern. "That seal was formed from the combined power of Hagoromo, Indra, and Ashura's chakra. It shouldn't deteriorate for millennia." As Naruto circled the dais, he noticed intricate patterns etched into the floor, a vast ceiling array that stretched to the chamber walls. Parts of the design pulsed with fading light while others had gone dark entirely. Like a complex machine gradually losing power. "Something's wrong with the whole network," Naruto observed, crouching to examine the fading lines. "It's like the seal is being drained somehow. The fragment pulsed suddenly, sending a shockwave of chakra through the chamber that knocked Naruto backward. He flipped mid-air, landing in a defensive crouch as the crystalline object began spinning more rapidly. Fractures spreading across its surface like ice cracking under pressure. Naruto, we should leave. Now. Kurama's urgent warning reverberated through their shared consciousness. We can't just. The fragment exploded in a blinding flash, forcing Naruto to shield his eyes. When the light faded, a translucent figure hovered where the crystal had been, the ethereal form of Hagoromo Otsutsuki. The Sage of Six Paths. Unlike their previous encounter, this manifestation appeared weak, his edges blurring and reforming as though struggling to maintain cohesion. Naruto Uzumaki. The sage's voice echoed through the chamber, distorted and fragmented. I feared this day would come sooner than predicted. Old man sage. Naruto straightened, approaching cautiously. What's happening? This chakra imbalance. As the beginning of a catastrophic failure, Hagoromo interrupted, his form flickering like a candle in wind. The seal binding my mother is degrading at an exponential rate. We miscalculated a fundamental aspect of the natural order. Naruto's brow furrowed. I thought the seal was permanent. You said. I was wrong, Hagoromo admitted, genuine regret lacing his ethereal voice. In our haste to contain the threat, we overlooked a critical truth. The Shinju requires a guardian. Nature abhors a vacuum, Naruto, particularly in matters of cosmic chakra. The chamber trembled, dust cascading from the ceiling as the ceiling array on the floor pulsed erratically, lines of chakra fluctuating between brilliant illumination and complete darkness. I don't understand, Naruto said. Though a cold realization was already forming in his gut. The divine tree was absorbed back into Kaguya, and we sealed her away. Shouldn't that be enough? Hagoromo's form stabilized momentarily, his ringed eyes fixed intently on Naruto. The Shinju is more than a tree, more than even my mother. It is the axis upon which the chakra of this world turns, a cosmic constant that maintained balance for millennia before Kaguya consumed its fruit. The sage gestured, creating a small-scale illusion depicting the divine tree at the center of flowing chakra currents that encompassed the entire world. When my mother was sealed, the Shinju was sealed with her. Now the natural order seeks equilibrium. Without an entity to serve as the nexus for natural chakra flow, the entire system has begun to destabilize. The illusion shifted to show the currents growing chaotic, twisting unnaturally. This imbalance weakens the dimensional barriers, including those containing Kaguya. So what you're saying is, Naruto processed slowly, we need to restore this chakra nexus. Create a new divine tree. Not exactly. Hagoromo's form flickered again, more violently. What the world requires is a new guardian, one who understands both human and divine nature. One who can maintain balance without succumbing to the corrupting influence of absolute power. Implication hung heavy in the air between them. You can't mean. Naruto stepped back instinctively, but Kurama's chakra surged within him, oddly responsive to Hagoromo's words. I had hoped this necessity would not arise for generations, the sage said solemnly. But the seal weakens more rapidly than anticipated. Within months, perhaps weeks, my mother will break free, and she will return to a world in chakra chaos. Ripe for her to reshape in her image. Another tremor shook the chamber, more violent than before. A crack splintered across the ceiling, sending fragments of stone crashing to the floor between them. There must be another way, Naruto insisted, though Kurama had gone suspiciously quiet within him. I'm just a shinobi, not even 20 years old. I can't become some kind of cosmic gardener. You are Ashura's reincarnation, carrying fragments of my own chakra, Hagoromo countered calmly. You host the strongest of the tailed beasts, and more importantly, you possess something neither my mother nor I truly mastered, the understanding of human connection and the will to protect it at all costs. The sage's form began to dissolve at the edges, particles of light drifting upward like embers from a dying fire. My remaining chakra cannot sustain this manifestation much longer. The choice must be yours, Naruto Uzumaki. But know that refusing this burden why condemn the world to a fate worse than any we averted in the war? Naruto closed his eyes, diving into his mindscape where Kurama waited in contemplative silence. You're unusually quiet about someone suggesting I become a tree god, Naruto observed, studying his partner's massive form. Kurama's tail swayed slowly, his crimson eyes uncharacteristically pensive. The old man isn't wrong, Naruto. I've sensed the disruptions for weeks now, chakra flows that have remained constant since my creation suddenly shifting, weakening. Something fundamental is failing. But becoming the Shinju's guardian, wouldn't that mean giving up my humanity? My dreams? Naruto's voice softened. Everything I've fought for. The fox's expression shifted to something almost gentle, an expression Faye W had ever witnessed from the typically sardonic beast. Perhaps, or perhaps you would transcend those limitations to protect what you value most. If anyone could maintain their heart while bearing such power, it would be you. Naruto's eyes widened slightly at the unexpected vote of confidence. That almost sounded like a compliment, furball. Don't get used to it, Kurama growled, though without malice. But consider this. If not you, then who? If Kaguya returns unfettered, with the world's chakra networks already in chaos? The implication hung heavy between them. Naruto had witnessed firsthand the devastation Kaguya could unleash, entire dimensions under her control, reality itself bent to her will. Returning to the physical world, Naruto found Hagoromo's form had deteriorated further. Now little more than a luminous outline against the darkness of the chamber. If I accept, Naruto said slowly, what exactly would happen? What would I become? You would rid aspects of both the Shinju's nature and fragments of divine chakra from both myself and my mother, Hagoromo explained, his voice growing fainter. Your consciousness would expand beyond mortal limitations. You would perceive and influence chakra on a fundamental level throughout this world and connected dimensions. And what about my friends? My connections? Naruto pressed. Would I still be me? That, Hagoromo said with surprising gentleness, would depend on your strength of will. No mortal has ever willingly assumed this mantle. My mother was corrupted by the Shinju's power because she seized it out of fear and desire for control. Your motivation would be protection. That distinction may prove crucial. Another violent tremor shook the chamber, this one sustained longer than previous occurrences. Large chunks of ceiling crashed down, forcing Naruto to dodge nimbly aside. The dimensional barriers thinned rapidly, Hagoromo observed, his form condensing with visible effort. I can channel what remains of my chakra to begin the transformation, but only if you choose this path willingly. Naruto stood silently, countless thoughts racing through his mind. Everything he'd worked for, acknowledgement, respect, his dream of becoming Hokage, all potentially sacrificed. Yet the alternative seemed unthinkable. A world fallen to chaos, his precious people suffering under Kaguya's returned dominion. If there truly is no other way, he said finally, meeting the sage's gaze with characteristic determination, then I accept. Not for power, but to protect everyone. Hagoromo's form seemed to brighten momentarily, approval evident in his expression. Then approach the center of the array, where I can transfer the necessary chakra elements to initiate the transformation. As Naruto stepped onto the dais, the ceiling patterns on the floor ignited with renewed brilliance, responding to his presence and decision. Naruto, Kurama's voice rumbled within him, whatever happens, know that I stand with you. We face this together. Wouldn't have it any other way, partner, Naruto replied with a small, genuine smile before addressing the fading sage. I'm ready. The process will be difficult, Hagoromo warned, hovering directly before Naruto. Your mortal form must adapt to contain divine chakra without being destroyed by it. Focus on your your reason for accepting this burden. Let that anchor you through the transformation. Naruto nodded resolutely, centering himself as he had countless times before battle. He thought of Konoha, of Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke. Of Hinata's unwavering faith, of Iruka's proud smile, of all the bonds he'd formed that had transformed him from a lonely outcast to a man willing to shoulder any burden to protect his precious people. Hagoromo raised ethereal hands, pressing one palm against Naruto's forehead and the other against his heart. May your human heart guide your divine power, he intoned formally. His form beginning to dissolve into pure chakra that flowed into Naruto's body like liquid light. The initial sensation was warmth, comforting, familiar, like the natural energy Naruto had grown accustomed to in sage mode. But that warmth rapidly intensified, becoming uncomfortable, then painful, then agonizing as Hagoromo's divine chakra infused every cell. Naruto gritted his teeth against the burning sensation, determined not to cry out as his body struggled to adapt. The chamber around him began to warp visually, perspectives shifting as his perception expanded beyond normal dimensions. He could suddenly see chakra networks extending far beyond the underground chamber, pulsing webs of energy stretching throughout the continent, connecting every living being in patterns of breathtaking complexity. Focus, Naruto, Hagoromo's voice echoed, now seemingly from within rather than without. Your mortal consciousness must expand without fragmenting. Direct the flow. Easier said than done. The influx of information threatened to overwhelm Naruto completely. Millions of chakra signatures suddenly within his awareness, each distinctive, each connected to the whole in ways he'd never imagined. He felt himself beginning to lose cohesion, his identity diluting in the vast ocean of universal chakra. Naruto. Kurama's powerful voice cut through the sensory overload. Remember who you are. Remember why you fight. The fox's chakra surged protectively, creating a buffer between Naruto's consciousness and the overwhelming cosmic awareness. That intervention provided just enough clarity for Naruto to reassert his identity, to remember himself amid the expanding universe of his perception. But something unexpected happened as Kurama's chakra interface with the divine energy flowing through Naruto. The Nine Tails essence began to separate, dividing along lines that had always existed but never been apparent before, yin and yang, masculine and fey. Many aspects that had remained integrated for millennia now pulling apart like celestial bodies establishing independent orbits. What is happening? Kurama's voice fractured, echoing with dual tones as his chakra continued to split within Naruto. Before either could process this development, another energy signature intruded, powerful, ancient, and distinctly feminine. A flash of white light momentarily blinded Naruto, and when his vision cleared, he found himself no longer in the physical chamber but in a mindscape vastly different from his usual subconscious environment. Instead of the familiar sewer or open landscape where he typically communicated with Kurama, Naruto stood in what appeared to be a massive dimensional crossroads, a nexus where multiple realities overlapped in translucent layers. And before him, contained within a ghostly reproduction of her sealing prison, floated Kaguya Otsutsuki. So, she spoke, her voice simultaneously distant and intimately close. My son chooses you as my replacement. How unexpected. Naruto maintained his composure despite the shock of her appearance. Kaguya, you're still sealed. For now, she acknowledged, pale EY's studying him with clinical detachment. But surely you understand. The seal fractures because reality itself rejects the absence of a Shinju guardian. Even as you undergo transformation, my prison weakens. Then why are you here? In my mind, Naruto questioned, maintaining a cautious defensive stance despite the metaphysical nature of their encounter. A slight, enigmatic smile curved Kaguya's lips. Because complete transformation requires more than just Hagoromo's chakra. You need a fragment of mine as well, the original guardian's essence. Naruto's eyes narrowed suspiciously. And you're offering this, willingly. Why would you help create your replacement? My motivations are irrelevant to your immediate concerns, Kaguya replied coolly. But consider this. Perhaps an eternity of conscious imprisonment has provided perspective. Perhaps I recognize that your approach to guardianship might differ from my failures. Before Naruto could question further, Kaguya raised one pale hand, pressing it against the translucent barrier of her seal. Regardless of my reasons, you require what only I can provide. Accept it or fail in your transformation. The barrier between them rippled like disturbed water, and a stream of pearlescent chakra extended from Kaguya toward Naruto. It hovered before him, waiting. Be wary, Naruto, came Kurama's voice, though strangely red, deeper resonances missing from his usual tone. This could be deception. If I wanted to deceive you, Kaguya interjected calmly, I would offer comfortable lies about retaining your humanity completely. The truth is harsher. Accepting my chakra will fundamentally alter your existence. You will never again be fully human. But without it, you cannot become what the world needs. The honesty, however brutal, rang true. Naruto studied the hovering strand of chakra, then looked beyond it to the imperious woman who had once threatened all existence. If I take this, he said carefully, will I become like you? isolated from humanity, seeing them only as lesser beings to be controlled. Something shifted in Kaguya's expression, a momentary softness, perhaps even regret, quickly masked by her usual impassivity. That path is always a risk with divine power. But consider, I arrived on this world alone, alien, with no connections to its people. You are of this world, bound by countless ties of loyalty and love. Those connections may prove stronger anchors than you realize. The mindscape shuddered violently around them, evidence that the transformation process was reaching a critical juncture. Naruto knew he had to decide. I accept your chakra, he stated firmly, but not your perspective. I'll find my own path as guardian. Kaguya's expression remained unreadable as the strand of chakra surged forward, merging with Naruto's being. The sensation differed dramatically from Hagoromo's contribution, where the sage's chakra had been ordered and harmonious despite its intensity. Kaguya's essence burned cold and sharp, ancient beyond comprehension and laden with memories of worlds long destroyed. Naruto staggered under the psychic weight, bombarded by fragmentary visions of Kaguya's existence, her arrival on Earth, her initially benevolent intentions, her growing isolation and eventual corruption, her love for her sons twisted into possessive rage. Millennia of perspective crashed into his consciousness, threatening to drown his identity entirely. Naruto. The voice that called to him now was not Kurama's familiar rumble but something new, feminine yet powerful. Concerned yet commanding. The mindscape blurred and shifted, resolving into a space more familiar, a simplified version of the forest outside Konoha. There, standing before him, was a figure Naruto had never seen yet somehow recognized instantly. She stood tall and proud, with a distinctly vulpine face framed by crimson hair that flowed like living flame down her back. 9 tails swayed behind her humanoid form, and eyes the color of blood regarded him with familiar intensity despite their novel setting. Her figure was undeniably feminine but radiated the same untamed power Naruto had always associated with his tailed beast partner. Kurama, Naruto questioned incredulously, momentarily distracted from the overwhelming influx of Kaguya's memories. Not exactly, she replied, her voice carrying echoes of the 9 tails' familiar tones but distinctly her own. I am Kurami, the feminine aspect of what you knew as Kurama. The transformation has affected more than just you, it seems. Where's Kurama? Is he still present, still part of you, but changed, as all things must be in this transition? Kurami approached, her movement fluid and predatory despite her humanoid form. The masculine aspect remains integrated with your chakra while I have individuated. Perhaps because balance demands it. Naruto struggled to process this development alongside everything else occurring. But Kurami didn't wait for him to catch up. She placed a clawed hand against his chest, directly over his heart. You're losing yourself in Kaguya's memories, in the cosmic awareness. Find your center, Naruto. Remember who you are at your core. Her touch acted as an anchor, allowing Naruto to mentally step back from the overwhelming flood of information and emotion. He focused on the sensation, the warmth of contact, the tangible reminder of his individual existence amid the expanding universe of his consciousness. Thank you, he managed, tenning as he gradually reasserted control. This is a lot to process. Understatement of the millennium, Kurami remarked with a smirk that carried echoes of Kurama's sardonic personality. Quote, but the transformation reaches completion. We must return to the physical realm to stabilize it. The mindscape dissolved around them, reality reasserting itself as Naruto's consciousness returned to the underground chamber. But that reality had fundamentally changed, or rather, his perception of it had transformed completely. He could see everything, not just with his eyes, but with a sense that transcended physical limitations. The chamber's stone walls were alive with traces of chakra from everyone who had ever passed nearby over centuries. The water molecules in the air vibrated with potential energy. The earth beneath him pulsed with slow, ancient power, the planet itself a living entity in his expanded awareness. Most striking of all, Naruto could perceive the vast chakra network spanning the entire world, glowing pathways connecting all living things in patterns of breathtaking complexity. And at countless points throughout that network, he detected distortions, places where the natural flow had been disrupted or damaged, creating cascading imbalances throughout the system. So much disharmony, he whispered, his voice carrying strange harmonic undertones that hadn't been present before. The world's chakra has been fragmented for generations. Standing proved momentarily challenging as Naruto adjusted to a body that both was and wasn't the one he'd inhabited his entire life. His form appeared outwardly unchanged, but internally, his chakra pathways had expanded exponentially, now capable of channeling energies that would have incinerated a normal shinobi instantly. Careful, Kurami's voice cautioned from within. Your physical form remains partially mortal. Move slowly until you adjust. Naruto nodded, taking deliberate steps as he oriented himself. The chamber had changed during his transformation, or perhaps he simply perceived it differently now. The ceiling array on the floor glowed with renewed purpose, no longer fading but stabilized by his presence at its center. More dramatically, a small sapling had emerged from the stone directly before him, no ordinary plant but a miniature version of the divine tree, its branches already reaching toward him with unmistakable purpose. The new Shinju manifests, Kurami observed. Born from your transformation, bound to your essence. Naruto knelt beside the sapling, instinctively understanding its significance. This wasn't merely a tree but an extension of his newly acquired divine nature, a physical anchor for the cosmic role he'd accepted. When he touched one slender branch, information flowed instantly into his consciousness. The sapling would grow rapidly, drawing power from his divine chakra rather than consuming life energy as Kaguya's tree had done. It would serve as both amplifier and regulator for his abilities as guardian. It needs to be planted somewhere safe, Naruto murmured, carefully lifting the sapling, roots and all, from the stone that had miraculously yielded to allow its growth. Somewhere sacred. As he considered locations, Naruto became aware of another presence materializing in the chamber, this one familiar yet altered, everything else in his expanded perception. Kurami appeared in physical form several feet away, her nine tails flowing behind her as crimson eyes surveyed their surroundings. Unlike in the mindscape, her physical manifestation appeared more vulpine than human, a fox standing proud on four legs, though significantly smaller than Kurama's massive form had been. So this is what independent existence feels like, she observed, stretching languidly. Fascinating. You can manifest physically now? Naruto questioned, cradling the sapling carefully. A consequence of our unique situation, Kurami explained, approaching to examine the small Shinju. I am neither fully separate from you nor entirely integrated. Think of me as your divine familiar. Connected but distinct. Naruto nodded slowly, processing this development alongside countless others. And Kurama remains within you, though transformed. His energy has become more compatible with your divine nature, less distinct as an individual entity, more integrated as an aspect of your power. Before Naruto could question further, the chamber shuddered violently, stones cracking overhead as the entire structure began to collapse. The old seal chamber destabilizes now that its purpose is fulfilled, Kurami noted calmly. We should depart. Naruto nodded, but rather than heading for the tunnel entrance, he focused on his newly expanded abilities. If his consciousness could perceive locations across vast distances, perhaps, acting on instinct, he envisioned the forest clearing ere he had often trained in sage mode, a location suffused with natural energy and personal significance. Willing himself there while cradling the sapling, Naruto experienced a momentary sensation of existing everywhere at once before reality coalesced around him in the familiar environment he'd pictured. That was, he steadied himself against a tree trunk, efficient. Spatial translocation, Kurami remarked, appearing beside him with a slight shimmer of displaced air. One of many abilities you'll discover. Though I suggest practicing before attempting longer distances. Naruto nodded, taking a moment to orient himself within the clearing. The pre-dawn light filtered through ancient trees, bathing everything in soft, golden illumination that seemed somehow more vibrant, more detailed to his enhanced perception. Each leaf, each blade of grass registered in his awareness with perfect clarity, every living thing radiating its unique chakra signature. Moving to the clearing's center, Naruto knelt and carefully placed the sapling in the soil. The moment its roots contacted the earth, they extended rapidly, anchoring the young Shinju while sending sensory tendrils deep into the planet's crust. Through this connection, Naruto's awareness expanded exponentially, suddenly encompassing not just the immediate area but the entire continent. He gasped at the sensory influx, momentarily overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information. I can feel everything, he whispered, eyes wide as his consciousness registered countless chakra signatures across the nations. Every person, every creature, every plant. Focus, Naruto, Kurami advised, circling the sapling with measured steps. Don't lose yourself in omniscience. Direct your attention purposefully. Taking a deep breath, Naruto narrowed his focus to Konoha, specifically to the Hokage Tower where Kakashi would likely be starting his day. Sure enough, he could perceive his former sensei's distinctive chakra signature, along with Shizune's and several Anbu guards. Further concentration revealed conversations, thoughts, emotions, information he immediately pulled back from, uncomfortable wit. Such invasion of privacy despite his new abilities. This power. Naruto shook his head, troubled. It would be so easy to abuse. Which is precisely why you were chosen, Kurami observed, settling beside him as the sapling continued to grow visibly, already reaching Naruto's knee height. Few would recognize that boundary, let alone respect it. Naruto nodded absently, his attention caught by disturbing patterns in the global chakra network he could now perceive. Throughout the shinobi nations, he detected numerous points of instability, places where natural energy flows had been damaged by excessive chakra manipulation, wars, or tailed beast incidents over generations. Most concerning was a massive disruption centered over the former battlefield of the Fourth Great Ninja War, where residual energy from Kaguya's near manifestation had created a swirling vortex of chaotic chakra that threatened to expand with every passing hour. That needs to be addressed immediately, Naruto determined. Rising to his feet, if it continues growing, it could cause chakra mutations in everything nearby. Your first act as guardian, Kurami noted, standing alongside him. How will you approach it? Naruto considered the question carefully. His instinct was to race to the location and tackle the problem directly, his typical approach as a shinobi. But his expanded awareness suggested a different solution might be more effective. I think, he began slowly, placing his hand on the growing Shinju sapling, I can channel stabilizing energy through the natural chakra network. Use the tree as a conduit. Quote, following this intuition, Naruto closed his eyes and established deeper connection with the sapling. Its branches responded instantly, extending upward while its roots plunged deeper into the earth. Through this living conduit, Naruto directed a carefully measured flow of his divine chakra, not imposing control but encouraging natural harmony, guiding disrupted energies back toward equilibrium. The sensation was unlike anything he'd experienced before, simultaneously intimate and vast as his consciousness rode the flowing chakra across hundreds of miles to the disturbance site. There, with gentle persistence rather than brute force, he began unraveling the chaotic tangle, soothing the wild fluctuations into more stable patterns. Minutes passed in deep concentration before Naruto opened his eyes, satisfaction evident in his expression. It's working. Slowly, but definitely working. An elegant solution, Kurami acknowledged, her tail swaying thoughtfully. Though I suspect larger disruptions will require your physical presence. Naruto nodded, turning his attention to the Shinju sapling that now stood waist-high, its ender trunk thickening as branches reached skyward with accelerating growth. Pale fruits had begun forming among its highest leaves, not the chakra fruit that had corrupted Kaguya, but something different. Something that radiated gentle harmony rather than tempting power. It's beautiful, Naruto observed, genuine wonder in his voice. His contemplation was interrupted by a sudden awareness of approaching chakra signatures, familiar ones, moving with urgent purpose. Your friends come, Kurami noted, ears pricking forward. Your shadow clone must have delivered its message. Naruto tensed slightly, uncertain how to explain his transformation. How would his friends react to what he'd become? Would they see him differently? Fear him? The anxiety felt jarringly human amid his expanding divine awareness. Should you hide? He asked Kurami uncertainly. The fox regarded him with something like amusement. And miss witnessing their reactions. Not a chance. After a pause, she added more gently, besides, they should meet all aspects of what you've become. Transparency builds trust. Before Naruto could respond, 3 figures burst into the clearing, Sakura, Sai, and Hinata. All battle-ready and clearly concerned. They froze at the tableau before them. Naruto standing beside a rapidly growing tree unlike any they'd seen before, accompanied by a crimson fox with multiple tails. Naruto, Sakura called cautiously, her stance defensive. Your clone said something about a chakra emergency, then disappeared before explaining anything. Hinata's Byakugan activated instantly, her expression shifting from concern to shock as she perceived Naruto's transformed chakra network. Your chakra, it's completely different. Expanded beyond anything I've ever seen. Sai remained silent, assessing the situation with calculating eyes, one hand hovering near his scroll and brush. Naruto stepped forward, suddenly acutely aware of how ordinary he must appear despite the extraordinary changes within. It's complicated, he began, searching for words to explain the inexplicable. There was a problem with Kaguya's seal, a fundamental flaw that threatened to release her. And, Sakura prompted, eyeing Kurami warily, and to prevent catastrophe, I had to accept a new role. Naruto gestured to the growing Shinju. I've become the guardian of the world's chakra. The new Shinju deity. Silence greeted this proclamation, his friends processing the implications with varying degrees of comprehension. Hinata approached first, fearless despite the unknown elements before her. Her Byakugan studied Naruto intensely, seeing beyond physical appearance to the transformed chakra network within. You're still you, she stated with quiet certainty after a moment. Your chakra signature has expanded, evolved, but the core essence remains Naruto. Her confidence seemed to break the tension. Sakura stepped forward next, medical training prompting analytical observation. Are you in any pain? Is this transformation stable? It's stable, Naruto assured her with a small, grateful smile for her practical concern. And no pain, just adjustment. I can perceive chakra everywhere now. See connections I never knew existed. Sai finally spoke, his customary directness oddly comforting in the surreal moment. And the multi-tailed fox. Another transformation consequence. I am Kurami. The fox introduced herself, tails swaying as she studied the newcomers. Feminine aspect of what you knew as Kurama, now manifested independently as Naruto's divine familiar. Divine familiar, Sakura echoed incredulously. Like a summons animal, more intimate than a summons, less integrated than a tailed beast, Kurami clarified. I exist to assist, advise, and occasionally tell Naruto when he's being an idiot. That last comment, delivered with Kurama's familiar sardonic tone, unexpectedly broke the tension. Naruto laughed, the sound W. Arm and genuinely amused, reassuringly human despite the cosmic changes he'd undergone. Some things never change, he remarked, gratitude evident in his expression as he regarded his friend's acceptance, however confused they might be. Hinata knelt beside the Shinju sapling, now nearly as tall as she was, studying its rapidly developing structure with her Byakugan. This tree, it's channeling natural energy from everywhere, creating new pathways. Naruto nodded, kneeling beside her. It's helping restore balance to the world's chakra network. There are disruptions, damage caused by centuries of wars, tailed beast incidents. Excessive jutsu use, that need healing. So you're what? The new god of chakra? Sakura questioned, attempting to frame the situation in comprehensible terms. Not exactly a god, Naruto corrected thoughtfully. More like a caretaker. Guardian. The Shinju maintained natural chakra balance before Kaguya interfered. Now that role falls to me. Will you still be around? Hinata asked quietly, the deeper question evident in her pale eyes. Or does this role take you away from us? The question struck at Naruto's core concern, his connections to the human world he'd always known. The people who gave his existence meaning. I'm not going anywhere, he answered firmly, meeting her gaze. This power, this responsibility, it's meaningless if I can't protect the people I care about. I accepted this role to prevent Kaguya's return, but also to create something better than what came before. The conviction in his voice seemed to reassure his friends, though countless questions clearly remained. Before they could continue, however, Naruto stiffened suddenly, his awareness drawn to a massive chakra disturbance forming thousands of miles away. What is it? Sakura asked, recognizing his expression of concentration. A problem, Naruto answered grimly, rising to his feet. A major chakra disruption forming over the land of water, like nothing I've felt before. I need to address it immediately. We'll come with you, Hinata stated immediately, her tone brooking no argument. Naruto hesitated, concerned for their safety yet touched by their unwavering loyalty. It could be dangerous. My divine chakra offers protection that you don't have. All the more reason you shouldn't face it alone, Sakura countered, cracking her knuckles with characteristic determination. They have a point, Kurami interjected unexpectedly. Your strength has always come from connections, not isolation. Perhaps that remains true even in divinity. Naruto considered this, then nodded slowly. All right, but stay close. I haven't exactly mastered teleporting with passengers yet. Teleporting. Sai raised an eyebrow. That's new. Just one of many surprises today. Naruto replied with a hint of his old grin, extending his hands to his companions. Ready. As they formed a circle, hands linked, Naruto focused on the coordinates his expanded awareness had identified. The Shinju sapling pulsed with responsive energy, branches extending upward as though reaching for distant horizons. In a flash of golden light that briefly illuminated the entire forest, the clearing emptied, leaving only the growing Shinju, its branches swaying gently in the morning breeze as dawn broke fully over Konoha. Miles away, across seas and borders, Naruto and his companions materialized on a rocky outcropping overlooking turbulent waters. Before them churned a massive vortex of purple-tinged chakra, rising from the ocean surface in spirally ing columns that distorted the very air around them. What is that? Sakura gasped, bracing against sudden winds that tore at their clothing. Naruto stepped forward, golden energy flickering around his form as he extended his divine senses toward the disturbance. The first test of my guardianship, he answered grimly, and proof that the world's chakra balance has been compromised for longer than anyone realized. Kurami padded forward to stand beside him, tails fanning out behind her as she surveyed the chaotic energy manifestation. This is just the beginning, isn't it? She observed quietly. Yes, Naruto acknowledged, determination hardening his features as he rolled up his sleeves. But so are we. As if responding to his resolve, new markings appeared on Naruto's palms, not the sun and moon symbols from the sage's power, but intricate patterns resembling tree roots and branches intertwined in perfect symmetry. They glowed with soft, golden light as he raised his hands toward the vortex. Divine chakra gathering around him in visible waves. I am Naruto Uzumaki, he declared, voice carrying power that transcended human limitations, guardian of the Shinju, protector of balance. And I will not fail. With those words, he stepped forward to meet his first challenge as deity, not alone, but surrounded by friends who would help anchor his humanity through the trials to come. Behind them, across the land in a forest clearing, the Shinju sapling stretched toward the sky, its branches spreading wider with each passing moment as a new era of chakra guardianship began. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Awakening Divinity. Consciousness existed between moments, stretched across infinite possibilities yet anchored to a single point of awareness. Naruto floated in a void that wasn't empty but rather saturated with potential, a space between dimensions where reality remained malleable and unfixed. Here, the conventional laws of physics surrendered to the more fundamental principles of chakra and intention. His first coherent thought was simple: I exist. His second was more complex: I am more than I was. Golden light pulsed around him, not merely illuminating the void but seemingly generated by his very presence. Each heartbeat sent ripples of energy expanding outward into the dimensionless space, creating patterns too intricate for mortal minds to comprehend. These patterns weren't random. They represented connections between all living things, networks of chakra stretching across dimensions in a cosmic web of interdependence. Naruto attempted to convey and discovered the concept of physical motion had little meaning here. Intention replaced action. To think of moving was to move, to consider a direction was to face it. The realization brought both wonder and disorientation. Where am I? He asked, his voice resonating strangely, each syllable producing harmonics that spiraled away like visible sound waves. Everywhere and nowhere, came Kurami's response as she materialized beside him, her vulpine form wreathed in crimson energy that contrasted with his golden aura. This is the dimensional interstice, the space between realities where raw chakra flows before taking form. Naruto struggled to process the information, his consciousness expanding faster than his comprehension could accommodate. Every moment brought awareness of new sensations. New perceptions that no human language had words to describe. He could taste the age of stars, hear the subtle differences between varieties of chakra, feel the emotional states of billions of beings simultaneously. It's too much, he gasped, instinctively trying to shield himself from the overwhelming influx. I can't. Focus on your core identity, Kurami instructed, circling him in a protective pattern. Remember the essential elements that make you Naruto Uzumaki. Use them as anchors. Following her guidance, Naruto concentrated on fundamental aspects of his identity, his unwavering determination, his compassion for others, his dream of protecting those precious to him. These core traits formed stable reference points amid the chaotic expansion of his consciousness. Better, he managed after several moments of concentrated effort. But everything keeps shifting, changing perspective, because you perceive reality on multiple levels simultaneously now, Kurami explained. Her form adapting more fluidly to their environment than his. Mortals experience existence linearly, one moment following another in sequence. Divine awareness encompasses past, present, and potential futures as concurrent realities. As if demonstrating her point, the void around them rippled, fragmenting into countless transparent layers showing different versions of the same moment, each slightly altered, each representing a potential outcome of present circumstances. Naruto saw himself in variations of his divine form, some more human, others more abstract, making different choices that branched into entirely divergent timelines. Are all these real? He questioned, bewildered by the kaleidoscopic display of possibilities. Real but unrealized, came a new voice, smooth, feminine, carrying ancient knowledge in each syllable. The dimensional layers parted as Kaguya appeared before them, though not as the threatening entity Naruto remembered from the war. This manifestation seemed more refined, her features less severe, her chakra purified of the corrupting influence that had once defined her. She floated gracefully within a sphere of pearlescent energy, maintaining a careful distance. Only one timeline actualizes, determined by choices made and influences exerted, she continued, pale eyes studying Naruto with clinical interest. Though from this vantage, all possibilities remain visible, Naruto tensed at her appearance, memories of their battle during the war still fresh despite his transformation. Kaguya, I thought only AF. Fragment of your consciousness was integrated into my divine chakra. Correct, she acknowledged with a slight inclination of her head. What you perceive is not my full being, which remains sealed, but rather an echo, a distilled essence of knowledge and experience separated from the will that wielded it. Convenient, Kurami remarked skeptically, positioning herself between Naruto and the Otsutsuki princess. Just the helpful parts of you survived, leaving behind the megalomaniacal tendencies. A flicker of something, perhaps amusement or annoyance, crossed Kaguya's serene features. Not exactly. Consider it a partitioning. The corrupted will that sought dominion remains imprisoned, while the understanding gained through millennia of existence was permitted transfer. I retain me, Mori's and knowledge without the driving impulses that led to my fall. Naruto studied her cautiously, extending his divine senses to verify her claims. What he detected aligned with her explanation. This manifestation lacked the malevolent hunger that had characterized Kaguya during the war, replaced by something closer to detached curiosity. Why are you here? He questioned directly. What do you want? Want. Kaguya repeated the word as though reacquainting herself with the concept. Interesting presumption. Want implies desire, which requires attachment. This essence retains neither. She gestured gracefully, and the dimensional void shifted around them, resolving into a crystalline landscape where mountain-sized formations of pure chakra jutted from an endless plain. Above them, stretched a sky veined with luminous pathways connecting distant points of light like a cosmic nervous system. I exist here to fulfill function, Kaguya continued, moving effortlessly through this materialized environment. The role of Shinju Guardian requires knowledge you do not possess. Hagoromo provided power and purpose. I provide understanding. Understanding of what, exactly? Naruto pressed, cautiously following her lead while Kurami remained vigilantly by his side. Everything, Kaguya answered simply, stopping before a particularly massive crystal formation that reflected their images in facets numbered beyond counting. The true nature of chakra. The higher dimensions from which it flows. The consequences of imbalance. The responsibilities of guardianship. She turned to face him directly. Her expression severe but not unkind. You accepted this mantle with admirable intentions but minimal comprehension. Without proper instruction, your divine power will cause more harm than good, no matter how pure your motives. The crystal before them suddenly flashed, its countless facets each displaying different images of catastrophe, landscapes twisted by uncontrolled chakra. People mutating from exposure to divine energy, entire ecosystems collapsing from fundamental imbalances. These are not hypothetical scenarios, Kaguya stated coldly. They are inevitable outcomes, if you attempt to wield divine power through the lens of human understanding alone. Naruto stared at the disturbing images, his expanded awareness confirming their plausibility despite his reluctance to accept them. So you're offering to teach me? Out of what? Altruism. Forgive me if I find that hard to believe. For the first time, genuine emotion flickered across Kaguya's features, something resembling regret. Quickly masked behind her composed exterior. Believe what you wish regarding motivation. The fact remains that you require guidance, and I possess the necessary knowledge. She's right about that much, Kurami reluctantly admitted, her tail swishing with evident agitation. Your actions at the chakra disturbance demonstrated both power and ignorance. You stabilized the immediate threat but created rippling consequences you didn't anticipate. What consequences? Naruto demanded, alarmed by this assessment. In answer, Kaguya gestured again, and there Suro. Nd Ings transformed into a globe-spanning view of the shinobi world, with visible currents of chakra flowing throughout its atmosphere. Numerous points of light pulsed erratically, representing disturbances in the natural energy network. Your intervention in the land of water released suppressed energy that has now manifested in 17 different locations, Kaguya explained dispassionately. Some beneficial, others potentially catastrophic. You addressed symptoms without understanding their relationship to the whole. The visualization zoomed in on a mountain range where a massive chakra surge had awakened dormant plant life, creating an instant forest of gigantic vegetation that threatened to engulf nearby settlements. Another location showed desert sands crystallizing into glass formations as corrupted earth chakra concentrated beyond sustainable levels. I was trying to help, Naruto defended, though the evidence of unintended consequences dampened his certainty. Intent is irrelevant to outcome, Kaguya replied. The Shinju's guardian must understand that every action reverberates through the entire network. There are no isolated interventions. She approached him with measured steps, stopping just beyond arm's reach. You have three choices, Naruto Uzumaki. Accept my guidance and learn to control your divine power properly. Reject assistance and cause incalculable damage despite your best intentions. Or abandon your role entirely, allowing the sealed guardian to reclaim her position when dimensional barriers inevitably fail. The ultimatum hung between them in the crystalline air, its implications crystal clear. Naruto glanced at Kurami, seeking her perspective on this unexpected development. We need the knowledge, Kurami acknowledged grudgingly. But trust must be earned, not assumed. Naruto nodded, returning his attention to Kaguya's waiting form. I'll accept your guidance, he decided firmly, but not your authority. You teach, I decide what actions to take. And at the first sign of manipulation or deception, the arrangement ends. A hint of something, perhaps respect, flickered in Kaguya's pale eyes. Acceptable terms. We begin immediately. Without warning, the crystalline landscape dissolved around them, replaced by utter darkness that gradually resolved into a vast three-dimensional representation of the cosmos. Galaxies spiraled below their feet. Dimensions intersected in geometric patterns of impossible complexity, and throughout it all ran currents of energy that Naruto instinctively recognized as primordial chakra. Before understanding divine guardianship, you must comprehend what you guard, Kaguya began, her voice acquiring the measured cadence of a lecturer. What humans call chakra is merely the manifestation of a higher dimensional energy that permeates all existence. She guided him through the cosmic display, indicating how the fundamental energy flowed between dimensions, coalescing in different forms across various planes of existence. Your world represents a unique convergence point where this energy naturally manifests in forms accessible to conscious manipulation. This makes Earth both valuable and vulnerable. Valuable to whom? Naruto questioned, absorbing the cosmic perspective with growing comprehension. To entities like the Otsutsuki, Kaguya answered, who evolved to harv. Saint and consume such energy but lack the capacity to generate it naturally. We travel between worlds, seeking convergence points to exploit. You make your clan sound like parasites, Naruto observed. Watching the visual representation of energy harvesting that accompanied her explanation, entire planets withering as their life force was systematically drained. Kaguya's expression remained neutral despite the accusation. An accurate assessment from certain perspectives. The Otsutsuki consider it their cosmic right to consume what lesser beings cannot fully utilize, a philosophy I once embraced without question. She paused, momentary contemplation softening her features. My perspective evolved during my time on Earth. Hence my eventual conflict with my clan's traditions. You tried to protect Earth, Naruto realized, connecting historical fragments with this new information. That's why you consumed the chakra fruit yourself instead of harvesting it for your clan. Initially, Kaguya acknowledged, though power corrupts, and divinity corrupts absolutely when wielded through the lens of individual desire. A lesson you would do well to remember. Their cosmic surroundings shifted again, focusing on Earth specifically, revealing an intricate network of chakra pathways crisscrossing the planet in patterns resembling a global nervous system. At various points throughout this network, bright nodes pulsed with concentrated energy. The divine tree originally served as regulator for this planetary chakra network, Kaguya explained, indicating how the energy flowed harmoniously through natural pathways. It maintained balance between different chakra types, prevented dangerous concentrations, and ensured sustainable circulation. The visualization changed to show the historical moment when Kaguya consumed the chakra fruit, disrupting the natural flow patterns and centralizing control through her individual will. My intervention, while initially protective, fundamentally altered the system's nature. Rather than self-regulating harmony, chakra became subject to hierarchical control, first through me, later through my sons, and eventually through the fragmented distribution to humanity. Leading to the shinobi system of chakra use, Naruto concluded, seeing how the natural pathways had been systematically overridden by artificial constructs over generations. Precisely, each generation further distorted the original patterns, creating increasingly unstable conditions. Kaguya gestured, and the visualization accelerated through centuries of human chakra manipulation, showing how wars, jutsu development, and tailed beast conflicts progressively damaged the planet's natural energy circulation. The seal that contained me also imprisoned the Shinju essence that should have been regulating this system, she continued. Without that regulatory function, the damage reached critical levels following the Fourth Ninja War. The dimensional barriers beg, and failing not just because they missed a guardian, but because the entire system verges on collapse. The gravity of the situation became unmistakably clear as Naruto witnessed the current state of Earth's chakra network, fractured. Overloaded in some areas while depleted in others, with dangerous concentrations building toward potential catastrophic release points. So my role isn't just preventing your return, he realized soberly. It's healing damage that spans generations. A formidable challenge, Kaguya acknowledged, requiring precise understanding of how divine chakra influences natural systems. Which brings us to your first lesson, chakra perception beyond human limitations. She approached Naruto directly, raising one pale hand toward his forehead. May I? After a moment's hesitation, he nodded permission. Her touch was cool against his skin, reminiscent of moonlight given physical form. Through that contact flowed information, not as conscious thought but as direct knowledge. Bypassing intellectual processing to implant understanding at a fundamental level. Suddenly, Naruto could perceive the dimensionality of chakra in ways his human mind had never comprehended. What he had previously experienced as a single energy now revealed itself as a complex spectrum, with variations in frequency, density, polarity, and countless other qualities that human language lacked words to describe. He struggled to articulate the experience, overwhelming. Breathe, Kurami instructed, pressing against his side supportively. Don't try to process everything at once. Let your expanded consciousness adapt gradually. Following her advice, Naruto focused on stabilizing his perception, allowing the new awareness to integrate naturally rather than forcing comprehension. Gradually, the chaotic influx of information resolved into discernible patterns, a new language of energy that he could begin to interpret. Better, Kaguya observed, withdrawing her hand. Now attempt to isolate a single chakra frequency and follow its flow through the network. Naruto concentrated on a distinctive energy signature, water-natured chakra with particularly harmonious resonance, and tracked its movement through the planetary system. He watched it flow from oceanic reservoirs through atmospheric circulation, interacting with other chakra types in complex exchanges that maintained ecological balance. I can see how it all connects, he marveled, tracing branching pathways across continents. Everything influences everything else. The fundamental principle of guardianship, Kaguya confirmed. No aspect exists in isolation. Each intervention must account for systemic consequences. Over what might have been hours or mere moments in this timeless dimension. Naruto absorbed foundational lessons in cosmic chakra mechanics. He learned to distinguish between natural fluctuations and dangerous disruptions, to perceive the subtle differences between thy chakra concentration and potential corruption points, to recognize how different energy frequencies interacted across dimensional boundaries. Throughout this instruction, Kurami remained vigilantly by his side, occasionally offering perspective that tempered Kaguya's clinical detachment with practical wisdom. The dynamic between them established itself naturally, Kaguya providing theoretical knowledge, Kurami grounding it in perspectives more accessible to Naruto's human understanding. Your progress exceeds expectations, Kaguya eventually acknowledged as Naruto successfully demonstrated. The ability to trace complex chakra interactions across multiple dimensions simultaneously. However, theory remains insufficient without practical application. You mean actually using this divine chakra to affect things? Naruto clarified, somewhat hesitant despite his growing comprehension. Given what happened with my first attempt, I'm not exactly eager to experiment. Reasonable caution, Kurami approved. But inaction has consequences too. The disruptions continue to spread while we remain here. Kaguya nodded agreement, materializing a three-dimensional map of current chakra instabilities across the planet. 17 major disruptions now approach critical thresholds. Without intervention, at least 3 will cause irreversible damage within the next solar day. The visualization highlighted particularly concerning locations, a destabilized chakra node near Kumogakur that threatened to trigger unprecedented lightning storms, a corruption zone in the land of Urt, where tectonic chakra had begun altering mineral composition at alarming rates, and most critically, a massive concentration of wild nature energy consuming a forest near the Fire Country's northern border. These require attention, but random intervention will only compound existing problems, Kaguya cautioned. You must establish systematic approach rather than reacting to individual crises. What do you suggest? Naruto questioned, studying the disruption patterns with growing concern. Instead of answering directly, Kaguya conjured a new visualization, the Shinju in its original form. Standing tall at the center of harmonious chakra flows, the divine tree did not address individual disruptions. It maintained continuous balancing influence through its connection to all chakra networks simultaneously. Understanding dawned as Naruto considered the implications. The sapling I planted, it needs to establish deeper connections to the planetary network. To serve as conduit and regu, later rather than just an anchor for my consciousness. Precisely, Kaguya confirmed. Your physical form cannot be everywhere at once, but your divine influence can flow through properly established channels. Like the original relationship between the sage and the 10 tails, Kurami observed thoughtfully, but reversed, with your consciousness directing the Shinju rather than containing it. Naruto nodded, the approach resonating with both his expanded awareness and his intuitive understanding. I need to fully activate the sapling, transform it into a proper conduit. But how? Through primal connection, Kaguya answered, her tone suggesting the answer should be obvious. The original Shinju established its regulatory function by connecting to chakra at fundamental dimensio. Null points. Nexus locations where natural energy converges from multiple sources. She materialized a map showing these convergence points across the planet, 27 locations where chakra flows intersected with particular intensity. Your sapling requires connection to these nexus points to establish proper regulatory function. Not physical connection, but energetic linkage through divine intent. I can create those connections from here. Naruto questioned, examining the nexus map with growing comprehension. This dimensional interstice exists specifically to facilitate such connections, Kaguya explained. Distance holds no meaning here. All points in the physical realm remain equidistant from divine perspective. With growing confidence, Naruto centered himself, visualizing the Shinju sapling he had planted outside Konoha. Through his divine perception, he could sense it clearly despite the dimensional separation, already grown to impressive size, its branches reaching skyward. Road while roots extended deep into Earth's crust. Following Kaguya's guidance and Kurami's supportive presence, Naruto extended his consciousness through the sapling, directing tendrils of divine energy toward the nearest nexus point, a subterranean chakra convergence beneath an ancient mountain range. Establishing connection required precise modulation of his divine chakra, adjusting its frequency to harmonize with the natural energy already flowing through the location. The first connection formed with an almost audible click in his expanded awareness, a perfect energetic circuit suddenly completed. Information flowed instantly in both directions, giving Naruto comprehensive understanding of chakra conditions throughout that region while simultaneously allowing his stabilizing influence to extend through existing pathways. 1 down, 26 to go, he murmured, already reaching for the next nexus point with growing confidence. Each subsequent connection proved easier than the last as Naruto developed intuitive understanding of the process. His consciousness expanded with each new linkage, extending his awareness and influence across progressively larger portions of the planetary chakra network. The sensations were extraordinary, simultaneously intimate and vast as he perceived countless life forms, ecosystems, and energy patterns through these connections. Careful, Kurami cautioned as his awareness continued expanding. Don't lose yourself in omniscience. Maintain your center. The warning came just in time as Naruto felt his individual identity beginning to diffuse across the vast network. He pulled back slightly, re-establishing boundaries between his consciousness and the information flowing through his connections, observer rather than becoming the observed. An essential distinction, Kaguya noted approvingly. The previous Shinju lacked individuated consciousness. It regulated blindly, without consideration for unique circumstances or evolutionary potential. Your awareness offers more nuanced guardianship, provided you maintain that distinction. After establishing the final connection, Naruto perceived the completed network in its entirety. 27 primary nodes linked through the Shinju sapling, creating a balanced regulatory system that encompassed the entire planetary chakra ecosystem. Through this network, his divine influence could flow precisely where needed, addressing disruptions systematically rather than through isolated interventions. It's beautiful, he observed, witnessing how natural chakra began rebalancing almost immediately, flowing more harmoniously through pathways that had been disrupted for generations. Like watching a wounded creature begin to heal. An apt analogy, Kaguya acknowledged. The planetary chakra system has endured centuries of compound trauma. Full recovery will require time and continued guidance. Through the newly established network, Naruto could perceive the 17 Maho disruptions more clearly now, understanding their underlying causes rather than just their symptoms. The lightning instability near Kumogakure resulted from accumulated imbalance between elemental chakra types, exacerbated by the village's lightning-based jutsu practices over generations. The tectonic disturbance in Earth Country stemmed from improper sealing of a Biju decades earlier, which had damaged natural regulatory pathways in the region. Most concerning was the nature energy consumption near Fire Country, a manifestation of the planet attempting self-regulation through extreme measures. Essentially, burning out corrupted chakra zones by accelerating energy consumption to unsustainable levels. I need to address these specifically, Naruto determined, focusing his attention on the 3 critical disruptions. The network helps balance overall flow, but these require direct intervention. Correct, Kaguya confirmed. System regulation addresses underlying conditions while acute disruptions need targeted treatment. Quote, like healing a body, Kurami suggested, helping translate the concept into terms Naruto could readily comprehend. The network improves overall health, but specific injuries still need direct attention. With this understanding, Naruto concentrated on the nature energy disruption first, recognizing it as the most immediately threatening. Through his connection to that region's nexus point, he extended his consciousness directly to the affected area, perceiving a forest where plants grew at impossible rates, trees reaching maturity in minutes, vines extending meters per second, fungi reproducing explosively. Rather than simply suppressing this accelerated growth as he might have attempted before, Naruto now understood the underlying imbalance. The excessive nature energy represented the system's attempt to process corrupted chakra left from previous conflicts. Working with this natural process rather than against it, he modulated the energy flow to sustainable levels while establishing new pathways to distribute the processed energy harmlessly. The approach proved remarkably effective. The wild growth stabilized without reversing, allowing the natural cleansing process to continue without threatening surrounding areas. Naruto applied similar principles to the other critical disruptions, addressing root causes rather than merely suppressing symptoms. Your comprehension advances rapidly, Kaguya observed as Naruto successfully stabilized all three critical zones. Though practical mastery will require continued application, I'm starting to understand this role, Naruto acknowledged, his expanded awareness continuing to monitor the stabilization process across multiple locations simultaneously. It's not about controlling chakra but guiding it, working with natural systems rather than imposing artificial order. A subtle shift in Kaguya's expression suggested approval, though she maintained her characteristic reserve. A perspective I unfortunately developed too late in my guardianship. Power corrupts most readily when wielded through the lens of control rather than cooperation. A lesson worth remembering, Kurami noted meaningfully, her tail swishing in thoughtful patterns. Especially as your influence expands. Naruto nodded agreement, already sensing how the established network had begun. Extending secondary connections throughout the planetary chakra system, natural pathways responding to the restored regulatory function, gradually re-establishing ancient patterns that had been disrupted for generations. Through these expanding connections flowed not just chakra but information, awareness of conditions throughout the world, including how humans were beginning to notice the changes. In Konoha, sensors reported unusual chakra phenomena. In Kumogakure, researchers documented inexplicable stabilization of weather patterns. Throughout the elemental nations, people with chakra sensitivity experienced dreams and visions of a great tree connecting all things. They sense the change without understanding its source, Naruto observed, monitoring these reactions through his expanded awareness. Inevitable, Kaguya responded dispassionately, though how they interpret these changes may significantly impact your ongoing guardianship. I should return to the physical realm, Naruto decided after consideration. Explain what's happening to those who can understand it, prevent misconceptions from taking root. A valid approach, Kaguya acknowledged, though maintain awareness. That divine perspective and human understanding remain fundamentally different. Even those closest to you will struggle to comprehend what you have become. The observation carried uncomfortable truth that Naruto couldn't deny. Already he perceived reality so differently that translating his experience into human terms seemed increasingly challenging. How could he explain perceiving all points in space simultaneously, or sensing the emotional states of thousands of individuals as easily as reading facial expressions? Or understanding chakra as a multidimensional language rather than simply energy to be shaped? You retain your human heart, Kurami reminded him gently, sensing his concern. That connection provides translation others lack. Trust it. Naruto nodded gratefully for her reassurance, then turned to Kaguya with a question that had lingered throughout their instruction. When I return to the physical realm, what happens to you? Do you remain here, or? My essence exists where knowledge of divine guardianship remains relevant, she answered cryptically. I will be accessible when guidance is required, absent when it is not. That's conveniently vague, Naruto observed dryly. The faintest suggestion of amusement flickered across Kaguya's features. Divine existence defies linear explanation. Experience will prove more instructive than words. Before Naruto could press for clearer answers, his awareness suddenly expanded beyond its previous limitations, encompassing the entire planetary chakra network in a single moment of perfect clarity. Through this expanded perception, he detected a critical threshold being reached, the accumulated effect of his interventions creating systemic balance that now required anchoring in physical manifestation. The network stabilizes, Kaguya observed, perceiving the same phenomenon. The initial phase completes. What happens now? Naruto questioned, sensing building pressure throughout the system, like energy gathering before lightning strikes. Manifestation, Kaguya answered simply. Your divine intent, channeled through the network, now transforms physical reality to reflect restored balance. He-dimensional interstices around them began to shimmer and distort, Naruto's connection to the physical realm strengthening dramatically as his consciousness prepared to transition back. Before the shift completed, Kaguya approached him one final time, her expression uncharacteristically earnest. Remember this above all else, Naruto Uzumaki, divine power serves life, not dominates it. The moment you believe your vision supersedes the natural order, corruption begins. With those parting words, the dimensional space dissolved around them, and Naruto felt his consciousness rushing back toward his physical form with exhilarating speed. The transition from divine awareness to bodily existence brought momentary disorientation as infinite perspective compressed into finite form. He opened his eyes to find himself standing before the Shinju sapling, except it was no longer a sapling. During his consciousness absence, the tree had grown exponentially, now towering nearly 50 meters high. Its trunk broad enough that 10 people linking arms could not encircle it. Luminous branches stretched toward the sky, leaves translucent enough to shimmer with inner light, while roots visibly extend across the clearing's floor in intricate patterns. More dramatically, the tree emanated visible chakra, golden energy flowing outward in pulsing waves that spread through the surrounding forest in expanding rings. Where this energy touched, life responded with vibrant intensity, flowers blooming out of season, grass growing lusher, animals appearing at the forest's edge to witness the phenomenon with uncharacteristic fearlessness. Kurami materialized beside him, her vulpine form seemingly more substantial in the physical realm than in the dimensional interstice. Impressive, she observed, surveying the transformed Shinju. Your divine intervention manifests quite tangibly. Naruto approached the massive tree, placing one hand against its smooth bark. Instant connection formed, allowing him to perceive how deeply the Shinju had integrated with Earth's chakra network during his absence. Through this living conduit flowed information from all 27 nexus points, providing incomprehensive awareness of conditions throughout the world. It's working, he confirmed, sensing how disrupted chakra patterns had begun naturally rebalancing through the established network. He regulatory system functions as intended. But something else commanded his attention, a rising tide of awareness from across the elemental nations as sensors, medics, and chakra-sensitive individua. LS detected the massive energy shift occurring throughout the natural world. Confusion, wonder, and in some cases fear rippled through collective consciousness as people witnessed inexplicable phenomena resulting from restored chakra flow. In Sunagakur, dormant desert plants suddenly bloomed across vast expanses, creating unprecedented greenery where only sand had existed for generations. Near Kurigakure, fog formations that had persisted for decades abruptly dissipated, revealing islands long hidden from view. Throughout the land of fire, chakra-sensitive children reported seeing golden HT flowing through the earth like luminous rivers. Most dramatically, in the valley of the end where Naruto's transformation had begun, the massive statues of Hashirama and Madara now glowed with restored chakra. Their stone eyes seemingly watching the unfolding changes with ancient awareness. I need to explain what's happening, Naruto determined, sensing growing concern among village leaders. As reports of these phenomena multiplied, before misunderstandings lead to fear or conflict, how do you propose to address everyone simultaneously? Kurami questioned practically. Even with your new abilities, you cannot be everywhere at once. Naruto considered the problem, then smiled as inspiration struck. Maybe not physically, but my presence can be. Closing his eyes, he placed both hands against the Shinju's trunk, establishing deeper connection with its planetary network. Through this connection, he extended his consciousness to each nexus point simultaneously, focusing on projecting a portion of his divine chakra into visible manifestation at these locations. Across the elemental nations, at 27 significant locations ranging from remote mountain peaks to the centers of hidden villages, identical phenomena occurred simultaneously. Columns of golden light descended from the sky, coalescing into translucent projections of Naruto in his divine form. These manifestations weren't physical but consisted of pure chakra shaped by conscious intent, allowing his presence to appear in multiple locations simultaneously. Through these projections, Naruto could perceive each location directly while also communicating with anyone nearby. In Konohagakure, his manifestation appeared atop the Hokage monument, immediately drawing attention from villagers and shinobi alike. In Sunagakure, he materialized beside the Kazukage's residence where Gaara instantly sensed his presence. Similar appearances throughout the elemental nations created unprecedented phenomenon that instantly commanded attention. People of the shinobi world, Naruto's voice resonated from each manifestation simultaneously, carrying harmonic qualities that identified its divine origin. I appear before you to explain the changes you've witnessed today. In Konoha, Kakashi immediately assembled available jonin near the monument, while civilians gathered in streets and on rooftops to witness the extraordinary sight. Similar scenes unfolded across all hidden villages as people instinctively recognized the significance of what was occurring. I am Naruto Uzumaki, the manifestations continued, though transformed beyond my former existence. To prevent catastrophic failure of the dimensional seal containing Kaguya Otsutsuki, I have accepted the role of Shinju Guardian, protector of the world's chakra balance. The projections gestured in unison, and above each appeared visual representations of the chakra network now being restored, golden lines connecting all living things in patterns of breathtaking complexity. For generations, the natural flow of chakra throughout our world has suffered damage, from wars, from Biju conflicts, from imbalanced jutsu use. This damaged system threatened collapse, which would have freed Kaguya while destroying chakra stability worldwide. Each manifestation showed brief images of what such collapse would have entailed, devastating natural disasters. Chakra mutations affecting all life forms, dimensional barriers failing completely. The changes you witness today represent healing, restoration of natural chakra pathways that have been disrupted for centuries. These changes bring neither harm nor control, but rather return balance to systems long damaged. In Konoha, Sakura pushed through the gathering crowd, Hinata close behind her. Both staring up at Naruto's manifestation with expressions mixing concern and wonder. In Kumogakure, the Raikage stood with arms crossed, assessing the phenomenon with characteristic intensity. Across the nations, reactions ranged from awed suspicion to reverent acceptance. I remain Naruto Uzumaki, the projections assured, their expressions softening with recognizable humanity despite their divine nature. My purpose remains protection of this world and everyone precious within it. Though transformed, my heart remains unchanged. The manifestations began to fade slightly, the energy required to maintain simultaneous presence taxing even Naruto's divine reserves. Questions will arise. Concerns will need addressing. In coming days, I will communicate directly with leaders of all nations to establish understanding of this new reality. As the projections dimmed further, Naruto added a final message: trust the changes you witness. The world heals itself with my guidance, returning to balance long forgotten. This restoration serves all life equally, favoring no nation or individual above others. With those words, the manifestations dissolved into particles of golden light that drifted upward before dissipating entirely, leaving 27 locations across the elemental nations buzzing with unprecedented activity as people processed what they had witnessed. Back in the clearing, Naruto opened his eyes, removing his hands from the Shinju trunk with a deep exhalation. The effort of maintaining multiple conscious projections had proven more challenging than anticipated. Despite his expanded capabilities, an impressive first address, Kurami observed, sitting beside him as he rested against the tree's massive roots. Though I suspect it creates as many questions as it answers. It's a starting point, Naruto replied, monitoring reactions throughout the nations through his continued connection to the chakra network. People needed to understand his changes aren't random or threatening, and the leaders who might see divine intervention as threatening to their authority. Kurami questioned pointedly. Naruto sighed, detecting exactly UCH concerns emerging among certain political and military figures. That's why I need to meet with them directly, establish that I'm not seeking to rule or control, just maintain necessary balance. As they discussed next steps, a small group approached the clearing's edge, Kakashi leading Sakura, Hinata, Shikamaru, and several other Konoha shinobi toward the towering Shinju. Their chakra signature radiated complex emotional mixtures: concern, curiosity, caution, and in Hinata's case, unmistakable devotion despite evident worry. Your friends come seeking understanding, Kurami noted, rising to her feet. The first test of whether divine perspective can translate to human connection. Naruto stood to meet them, feeling simultaneously powerful beyond measure and vulnerably human as he prepared to explain his transformation to those whose opinions mattered most to him. Despite cosmic awareness and divine capabilities, their acceptance remained profoundly important, a truth that reassured him his humanity persisted despite his ascension. Ready or not, he murmured, stepping forward as Kakashi's group entered the clearing and stopped in collective amazement at the sight of the massive Shinju. The new reality begins now. Quote, the tree's leaves rustled above them without any wind, its branches extending protectively over the gathering as golden light pulsed gently through its structure. Throughout the elemental nations, similar pulses occurred at each nexus point, visible reminders that a fundamental change had occurred in the world's very fabric, the emergence of a new divine Guardian whose human heart remained his greatest strength. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3, Mortal Concerns. Dawn broke reluctantly over Konoha, struggling to pierce a sky heavy with strange luminescence. Here stars should have faded with approaching daylight, they instead intensified, pulsing with unusual rhythms that sent civilians and shinobi alike into the streets, faces upturned in communal bewilderment. Hatake Kakashi stood atop the Hokage Tower, silver hair catching ethereal light as he studied phenomena no scientific instrument in the village could explain. Behind his mask, lips pressed into a grim line, 30 years of shinobi service had taught him that unprecedented events rarely heralded good news. Anything from the censor division? He asked without turning as Shizune approached, her footsteps nearly silent on the rooftop tiles. Nothing conclusive, she replied, extending a scroll filled with hastily scribbled observations. Massive chakra fluctuations registered across all networks. But the signature doesn't match any known pattern. It's everywhere simultaneously. Kakashi's visible eye narrowed. Everywhere. Reports from border stations confirm identical phenomena throughout Fire Country. Messages from allied nations describe similar occurrences. Shizune hesitated. Hokage-sama, some sensors report the chakra feels familiar somehow. Like something they've encountered before. But dramatically amplified. Familiar how? That's just it. They can't agree. Some say it resembles nature energy, others claim it has characteristics of Biju chakra, and a few insist it carries traces of Otsutsuki energy like we encountered during the war. Or some combination, Kakashi murmured, raising his Hitai-8 to expose his Sharingan. The revealed eye widened, immediately as it processed visual information beyond normal perception. The sky wasn't merely glowing, it was networked with intricate patterns of chakra flowing in precisely regulated currents, a global circulatory system suddenly made visible. More concerning, these patterns seemed to be rewriting themselves, ancient flows redirecting toward a central point somewhere beyond Konoha's borders. Assemble available Jonin and Anbu, Kakashi ordered, lowering his Hitai-8. Full alert status without causing public panic. And locate Team 7, all members. Something tells me Naruto might have insight into whatever this is. Sir, Shizune hesitated, there's one more thing. Naruto's apartment is empty, and according to gate records, he left the village 3 days ago on that reconnaissance mission to the Valley of End. He should have returned yesterday. The 6th Hokage's expression remained carefully neutral, but internally, pieces began shifting into place with troubling implications. Find me Hinata Hyuga, immediately. In the Hyuga compound, Hinata knelt in her private garden, palms pressed against cool earth as she struggled to process sensations overwhelming her dujutsu. The Byakugan had activated spontaneously during early meditation, responding to chakra disturbances too significant to ignore. What she witnessed defied comprehension. The entire chakra network underlying Konoha, invisible foundations established by generations of Senju and Uzumaki seal masters, had begun shifting, reconfiguring into patterns simultaneously ancient and new. Through walls and streets, beneath buildings and training grounds, these energy pathways pulsed with golden light that carried an unmistakable signature. Naruto-kun, she whispered, fingers digging into soil that vibrated with subtle energy. What's happening to you? Her Byakugan's range had always been exceptional, but today it extended beyond previous limitations, perceiving chakra movements across entire provinces without the expected strain. Through this enhanced vision, she tracked golden energy flowing like luminous rivers throughout Fire Country, all streams ultimately connecting to something massive, a central nexus beyond her visual range that radiated power unlike anything she'd encountered. A branch family member appeared at the garden entrance, bowing respectfully. "Hinata-sama, the Hokage requests your immediate presence." Releasing a steadying breath, Hinata rose gracefully. "Tell him I'm already aware of why he's asking, and I'm on my way." As she prepared to leave, a sharp pain lanced through her eyes. Vision blurring momentarily before expanding exponentially. For one breathtaking moment, her Byakugan perceived beyond physical limitations, glimpsing something, someone, existing simultaneously across multiple dimensions. The figure radiated golden light and unmistakable warmth despite its cosmic scale. "I will find you," she promised quietly, deactivating her Byakugan to preserve strength. "Whatever you've become, wherever you are, .. In Konoha Hospital's research division, Sakura Haruno stared in disbelief at cellular samples arranged before her microscope. What had begun as routine analysis of patrol shinobi experiencing unusual chakra symptoms had transformed into something unprecedented. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting the instrument's focus. "Run the tests again." Her assistant shifted nervously. "We already repeated everything 3 times, Haruno-san. The results are consistent." The samples showed human chakra coils adapting to environmental changes, reorganizing their structure to accommodate increased energy flow, evolution occurring in real time rather than across generations. More remarkably, these changes appeared beneficial rather than harmful, optimizing cellular efficiency while strengthening natural healing mechanisms. "Whatever's happening isn't damaging their systems," Sakura observed, straightening from the microscope. "It's like their chakra networks are upgrading themselves. Is it some kind of mass genjutsu?" the assistant suggested. "Or perhaps a new biological agent?" Sakura shook her head, fingers absental. Why touching the strength of 100 seal on her forehead? No genjutsu affects physical cellular structure, and no pathogen could coordinate identical changes across different individuals simultaneously. Before she could theorize further, a tingling sensation spread from her seal throughout her body. The stored chakra she'd accumulated over years suddenly resonated with the environmental changes, responding like a tuning fork struck by perfect pitch. Knowledge flooded her consciousness, not as coherent thoughts but as medical intuition transcending normal understanding. "These aren't just physical changes," she gasped, instinctively channeling healing chakra to her palms. The normally green energy emerged golden-tinged, flowing with unprecedented precision. The fundamental relationship between spiritual and physical energy is being recalibrated at a systemic level. Focusing this enhanced healing chakra on a tissue sample from an injured shinobi, Sakura watched in amazement as cells regenerated at 5 times normal speed, the golden green energy efficiently repairing damage that would typically require weeks of treatment. "How are you doing that?" her assistant questioned, wide-eyed. "I'm not entirely sure," Sakura admitted, studying her glowing hands. "It's like someone rewrote the rulebook on how chakra interacts with living tissue." A hospital messenger appeared at the laboratory door. "Haruno-san, the Hokage has called an emergency meeting of all Jonin. Also, there's something happening at the main gates you should probably see." "What kind of something?" Sakura questioned, already removing her lab coat. The messenger's expression reflected genuine bewilderment. "People are arriving from surrounding villages with unusual medical conditions. Not injuries exactly, but changes. And they're all asking for you specifically, claiming they had dreams that you could help them." Sakura frowned. "Dreams about me? About a pink-haired healer whose hands hold golden light?" The messenger confirmed. "Some have traveled through the night to reach you, including children who've never been to Konoha before." The implications sent a chill down Sakura's spine, not from fear but recognition. Only one person connected her to golden energy and healing on such a fundamental level. "Naruto," she whispered, sudden certainty filling her. "You're behind this somehow." Gathering essential supplies, Sakura headed for the hospital exit, her mind racing through possibilities. Whatever had occurred, Naruto stood at its center, and knowing him, he'd managed to land. directly in whatever cosmic upheaval was transforming the world's chakra networks. Typical, she muttered affectionately, quickening her pace toward the Hokage Tower. Can't even evolve the fabric of reality without making it everyone else's emergency. At Konoha's northern boundary, where ancient forest met village perimeter, Sai knelt motionless, brush suspended above an empty scroll as he processed visual information his artistic training had never prepared him to capture. The trees were communicating, not through sound or movement, but via luminous threads of chakra connecting. Root systems in patterns too precise to be natural yet too organic to be artificial. These connections formed living ideograms, symbols resembling Fuinjutsu script but older, more fundamental, as thou. The forest itself had developed written language overnight. As former root operative and current Anbu captain, Sai's first instinct was to document these phenomena for strategic assessment. But Tist's instinct overrode shinobi training, brush finally touching paper to recreate symbols that seemed to shift whenever directly observed. His ink, infused with chakra through years of combat jutsu development, responded unusually to these attempts. Instead of forming the precise lines he intended, it spread in branching patterns that mimicked the forest's communication network, autonomous artists. Tick expression beyond his conscious control. Fascinating, he murmured, genuine emotion coloring the word as the scroll filled with intricate designs that somehow conveyed concepts beyond Konoha's linguistic capability. Movement at the forest edge drew his attention. A young deer emerged from the underbrush, approaching without typical wildlife caution. Its eyes reflected golden light, and chalk, raw visible even to Sai's untrained perception, flowed through its body in patterns matching those connecting the trees. The deer stopped several paces away, regarding him with unnerving intelligence before turning to indicate deeper forest with unmistakable intent. You want me to follow, Sai realized, gathering his supplies. Root training had included tracking animal behavior for survival purposes, but never had he encountered wildlife actively seeking human interaction without provocation or training. The deer maintained consistent distance as it led him deeper among ancient trees. Follow. No visible path yet moving with evident purpose. After several minutes, they entered a clearing unlike any Sai had previously documented in boundary patrols. Massive roots breached the forest floor, curving upward before plunging back into earth in complex archways that formed a natural pavilion. At the clearing's center stood a sapling that defied botanical classification, its trunk crystalline, leaves translucent. Branches reaching skyward with intelligent design rather than random growth. Most remarkably, the sapling pulsed with chakra identical to the network connecting the forest, Den energy flowing outward in rhythmic waves that synchronized with global fluctuations Sai had observed since dawn. The deer approached this strange tree, touching its muzzle to crystalline bark with reverent gentleness. Where contact occurred, chakra brightened momentarily, and Sai experienced unprecedented sensation, emotional information transmitted directly to consciousness without passing through normal sensory channels. Naruto. Change. Renewal. Balance. Asterisk. Concepts rather than words, impressions rather than language, yet conveying unmistakable meaning. The source of global transformity. Ons wasn't merely connected to Konoha's most unpredictable ninja, it was him, somehow fundamentally integrated with natural systems beyond human comprehension. Reaching for fresh scroll, Sai began documenting the clearing with methodical precision, instinctively understanding he witnessed something historic. His artistic training had taught him to capture essential truth rather than mere apira. NCE, a skill suddenly vital as he worked to record phenomena transcending normal perception. The resulting images depicted not just physical reality but energetic patterns underlying it, chakra flows, dimensional intersections. And at the center of everything, a familiar presence expanded beyond mortal limitations yet retaining unmistakable characteristics. Only you, Sai murmured with rare affection, adding final details to his illustration, would transform into something divine without bothering to file proper paperwork first. In the shadowed chambers beneath Konoha Intelligence Division headquarters, Ibiki Morino faced unprecedented challenge. The village's most sensitive chakra sensors, specialized Jonin capable of detecting enemy presence across vast distances, had collectively collapsed at precisely 3:17 that morning, overwhelmed by sudden informational overload. They'd recovered consciousness within minutes, but what followed proved more concerning than their temporary incapacitation. Each sensor now reported radically expanded awareness, perceiving chakra movements throughout entire nations rather than limited regional ranges. More disturbing, they all described identical visions during unconsciousness, a massive tree connecting all living things through golden energy that somehow felt intimately familiar. Run through it once more, Ibiki directed, expression betraying none of his internal concern. What exactly did you perceive before losing consciousness? Sensor Captain Mizuku adjusted his glasses nervously. A pulse of energy unlike anything in our reference databases. It originated from somewhere northeast of Konoha but expanded everywhere simultaneously. Then, total sensory overload, like trying to process infinite information through finite perception. And now we perceive everything with perfect clarity, Mizuku replied, gesturing toward his team. Chakra signatures from the entire continent are accessible without strain. We can identify individuals in other hidden villages without deploying field agents. But more importantly, he hesitated. Continue, Ibiki prompted. The entire chakra network underlying reality has changed. Previous disruptions from wars, Biju incidents, and environmental damage are being systematically repaired by something, or someone, with power beyond anything we've monitored since division establishment. Ibiki's scarred face remained impassive despite internal alarms. Your assessment of threat level. Mizuku exchanged glances with his team before answering carefully. That's where consensus breaks down. The power involved could easily overwhelm all 5 hidden villages simultaneously. But the intent behind these changes doesn't register as hostile. Quite the opposite. It's protective, nurturing, like the entire world is being healed rather than harmed. And your collective vision, this tree, not just any tree, another sensor interjected. The Shinju, the divine tree from ancient legends. But unlike the version Madara summoned during the war, this manifestation radiates benevolence rather than hunger. And at its core, yes, Ibiki prompted when the sensor hesitated. At its core exists a consciousness we all recognize. It's Naruto Uzumaki, somehow transformed into something beyond human comprehension while remaining fundamentally himself. Silence filled the chamber as Ibiki processed this information, weighing implications against decades of intelligence experience. Uzumaki's involvement contextualizing global phenomena simultaneously reassured and RNED him. The boy's fundamental goodness was unquestionable, but his new capabilities apparently transcended anything intelligence protocols were designed to address. Continue monitoring all changes, he finally ordered. Document everything with redundant verification. I need to brief the Hokage on developments that technically qualify as both unprecedented threat and extraordinary asset. As his team resumed their expanded sensory duties, Ibiki allowed himself momentary unprofessional thought. If anyone had to suddenly acquire godlike powers over fundamental reality, Naruto Uzumaki reprise. NTED the least concerning candidate imaginable. Anyone else, particularly those previously pursuing such capabilities, would have already reshaped the world according to personal vision. That the Chang's instead focused on healing rather than domination spoke volumes about the heart behind them. Across Konoha's civilian districts, phenomena less dramatic but equally significant unfolded as ordinary citizens experienced connection to global transformation through their limited chakra networks. In the central marketplace, elderly Himari Tanaka had arrived before dawn to prepare her vegetable stand as she had daily for 47 years. Arthritis typically made morning preparations painful, each movement a negotiation with reluctant joints. Today, however, she worked without discomfort, energy flowing through aged limbs with youthful efficiency. Strange weather, observed Takeo from the neighboring fish stall, gesturing skyward where luminous patterns continued flowing despite advancing daylight. Making my old war injuries quiet down though. Haven't felt my knee this good since before the Third Shinobi War. Something in the air, Himari agreed, arranging produce with unprecedented vigor. Reminds me of how things felt when the Uzumaki clan still maintained village barriers, before they were scattered. A feeling of protection. Similar conversations occurred through civilian quarters as minor ailments mysteriously improved, chronic conditions temporarily abated, and general well-being enhanced without medical intervention. Children demonstrated increased chakra sensitivity. many reporting dreams of golden light and a tremendous tree spreading protective branches across the entire world. At the academy, instructor Iruka Yumino faced unique challenges as NTS collectively manifested chakra awareness, typically requiring years of training to develop. Young children suddenly perceived chakra visually, describing colors and patterns flowing through classmates, instructors, and village infrastructure with startling accuracy. Iruka Sensei called 7-year-old Amaya, pointing excitedly out classroom windows. The Hokage mountain is glowing. The faces have different colors. Students rushed to windows, confirming her observation with escalating excitement. The stone monuments indeed radiated subtle chakra signatures, each Hokage's face emanating distinctive energy patterns matching their historical characteristics. Hashirama's warm green, Tobarama's cool blue, Hiruzen's balanced yellow, Minato's intense white, Tsunade's vibrant pink, and Kakashi's electric silver. Settle down, Iruka called, maintaining outward calm while internally processing implications. These children perceived chakra residue left by the village's founders, Energy Imp. Ressions previously detectable only by specialized sensors or advanced dujutsu users. Something had fundamentally enhanced everyone's chakra sensitivity overnight. One student remained at his desk while classmates pressed against windows. Kenji Sarutobi, grandnephew of the third Hokage, sat quietly with tears streaming down his face, expression combining awe with inexplicable recognition. Kenji, Iruka approached with concern. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, the boy whispered, eyes focused on something beyond physical perception. It's just, I can feel Granduncle Hiruzen. Not like a ghost, but his chakra impression in the village network. And he's happy about whatever's happening. The statement silenced other children, who returned to their seats with unusual solemnity as Iruka struggled for appropriate response. Before he could formulate one, a knock interrupted as Anbu appeared at the classroom door. Academy sessions suspended by Hokage order, the masked operative announced. All students to return home immediately. Instructor Yumino requested at Hokage Tower for emergency briefing. As children gathered belongings amid excited speculation, Kenji approached Iruka with uncanny composure. It's Naruto Nissen, isn't it? My granduncle's chakra feels like it's celebrating whatever Naruto Nissen has done. Iruka knelt to eye level with the perceptive child, voice gentle but serious. Why do you think Naruto is involved? Kenji pointed to his own chest. Because whatever's changing the village is coming from here first, from inside people's hearts. That's always been Naruto Nissen's special power. The observation, profound beyond the boy's years, left Iruka momentarily speechless as pieces connected in his mind. If these changes originated from within rather than being imposed from without, they represented Naruto's fundamental approach to transformation rather than Madara's or Kaguya's forced vision. You might be right, he acknowledged, resting a hand on Kenji's shoulder. And if Naruto is behind this, then we have nothing to fear from these changes. The conviction in his voice reassured not just the child but himself. Whatever cosmic shifts occurred, if they carried Naruto's signature, they ultimately served protection rather than destruction. On the outskirts of Konoha, where abandoned Uzumaki clan grounds had stood neglected since Uzushiyogakure's fall. Ancient ceiling arrays long dormant beneath overgrown gardens suddenly activated, stone monuments glowing with regenerated chakra as protective barriers re-established themselves automatically. Within this reawakened sanctuary, something impossible occurred. Reality rippled at the central courtyard's heart, space-time folding inward before expanding outward in gentle pulses. From this dimensional fluctuation emerged a woman who, according to all historical records, had died decades earlier. Mito Uzumaki materialized with quiet dignity, her formal kimono immaculate, Mson hair arranged in traditional buns secured by sacred sealing pins. She appeared neither as elderly matriarch nor youthful princess, but in her prime, a formidable kunoichi whose sealing mastery had once contained the 9 tails within her own body. Opening eyes that reflected centuries of wisdom, Mito surveyed restored clan grounds with measured assessment. Her expression revealed neither surprise at her apparent resurrection nor concern over chronological displacement. Instead, she radiated calm purpose, moving through reactivated sealing arrays with familiarity born from having personnel. Why created many of them during Konoha's founding era? Kneeling at the courtyard's center, She pressed one palm against stone bearing the Uzumaki spiral, channeling chakra with precision honed through lifetimes of practice. The seal responded immediately, complex patterns expanding outward to form diagnostic array capable of analyzing current conditions throughout the village and beyond. So it finally happened, she murmured, interpreting information flowing through ancient channels. A new Shinju guardian emerges. And an Uzumaki, no less. Rising gracefully, Mito moved toward clan archives that had automatically unsealed themselves upon her arrival. Within these protected chambers lay knowledge too dangerous for general access, records documenting the Uzumaki clan's original purposes. C. Aretakers of chakra's foundational balance, established long before hidden villages formalized shinobi systems. From a hidden compartment accessible only to those with Uzumaki blood and specific chakra frequency, she withdrew a scroll sealed with 9 separate blood contracts, a record created by her grandmother documenting the divine compact that had originally separated 10 tales into 9 distinct entities. The cycle returns to origin, Mito observed, unrolling ancient documentation with careful reverence. Though not as anyone anticipated, her contemplation was interrupted by awareness of approaching chakra signatures, 2 individuals moving with purpose toward clan grounds, one familiar despite never having personally encountered it, the other resonating with distinctive Senju char characteristics despite lacking direct bloodline connection. Right on schedule, Mito noted with faint smile, returning the scroll to its compartment. The Guardian's anchors arrive seeking answers. He moved unhurriedly to the compound's entrance, adjusting her formal appearance with ingrained nobility as she prepared to greet visitors connected to her returned existence in ways they themselves likely didn't yet comprehend. Hinata Hyuga approached the abandoned Uzumaki compound with Sakura Haruno close behind, both drawn by chakra fluctuations too significant to ignore despite the Hokage's ongoing emergency session. While other Jonin focused on village security and information gathering, they had obtained reluctant permission to investigate this particular anomaly based on their connections to Naruto. The barriers are active, Hinata observed through her Byakugan, examining ancient sealing arrays now pulsing with renewed energy. These haven't functioned since before the Third Shinobi War. Can you see what triggered them? Sakura questioned, medic instincts automatically cataloging the energy's potential health implications, uniformly positive based on her enhanced sensory capabilities. There's someone inside, Hinata confirmed, focus intensifying. A woman with extraordinary chakra development. Unlike anything in Hyuga classificatio, she stopped abruptly, eyes wide ending in recognition impossible given her age and the subject's historical period. What is it? Sakura pressed, noting her companion's unprecedented reaction. Impossible, Hinata whispered, but her chakra signature matches historical records perfectly. It's Mito Uzumaki, the first Hokage's wife and original Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Before Sakura could question this assessment, the compound gates opened independently, revealing a regal woman whose appearance matched historical photographs displayed in Hokage Tower's heritage wing. She regarded them with serene composure, as though their meeting had been long arranged rather than historically impossible. Hinata of the Hyuga clan and Sakura of the Haruno family, Mito greeted them formally, using their names without introduction. Your presence honors the Uzumaki grounds. Please enter and be welcome. Stunned, momentarily speechless, the younger women exchanged glances before Sakura found her voice. You're actually Mito Uzumaki. How is this possible? An understandable question, Mito acknowledged, gesturing them toward the inner courtyard. Though perhaps less relevant than why it has occurred now, and what connection XCSTS between my return and recent transformations affecting the world's chakra network. Following cautiously, Hinata maintained active Byakugan, confirming their host's identity through precise chakra comparison with historical records. You're really her, she whispered. But you died decades ago. Death and life exist on continuums rather than absolutes when one understands chakra's fundamental nature, Mito replied cryptically, leading them to a traditional tea arrangement prepared in the courtyard. Please, sit. The circumstances allowing my return relate directly to your shared concern for Naruto Uzumaki. Both younger Kunoichi tensed at Naruto's name, their expressions betraying emotional investment that transcended professional interest. Mito observed this reaction with knowing assessment. gracefully preparing tea through ritualized movements that established harmonious atmosphere despite extraordinary circumstances. You believe Naruto is responsible for whatever's happening, Sakura stated directly. Accepting offered tea with Medic's careful analysis of its contents, finding only traditional herbs enhanced by unusually pure chakra. Not exactly responsible, Mito corrected thoughtfully. More accurately, he has become the conscious embodiment of necessary cosmic adjustment. The world's chakra network required guardian following Kaguya's sealing. Naruto Uzumaki has accepted that role, with consequences extending beyond anyone's anticipation, including my unexpected return. Guardian, Hinata questioned, honorifics momentarily forgotten in her concern. What exactly does that mean for him? Is he still himself? Mito's expression softened with genuine compassion. Your concern honors both him and you. The transformation to Shinju Guardian represents unpr. Unprecedented evolution. No mortal has willingly assumed this mantle previously. But from what I perceive through restored clan connections, Naruto's essential nature persists despite cosmic expansion of his consciousness and capabilities. You can sense him. Sakura leaned forward intently. We've been trying to locate him since these changes began. Not precisely locate, Mito clarified. Rather, I perceive his influence throughout the universal chakra network. He exists everywhere energy flows, while maintaining concentrated presence wherever the Shinju manifests physically. The strange tree in the northern forest. Hinata realized, connections forming through her enhanced perception. That's him, or part of him. A physical anchor for his expanded consciousness, Mito confirmed. Though currently, his awareness focuses on establishing balanced regulation throughout global chakra networks. Tasks neglected for generations require immediate attention to prevent systemic collapse. Sakura processed this information with analytical precision, medical training providing framework for understanding systemic implications. You're saying he's basically become some kind of chakra cardiologist for the entire planet. Healing damaged pathways and restoring proper flow. The metaphor earned approving nod from Mito. An apt comparison, particularly given your medical expertise. E-World's chakra circulation has suffered accumulated damage since Kaguya's original sealing, from wars, tailed beast incidents, dimensional disturbances, and inappropriate jutsu applications. Without intervention, complete network failure was inevitable. But why Naruto? Hinata questioned, protective concern evident despite her formal composure. Why would this responsibility fall to him specifically? Mito studied the Hyuga heiress thoughtfully before responding. Several factors converged. His Uzumaki lineage provides natural compatibility with sealing networks. His experiences as Kurama's Jinchuriki established harmonic relationship with Biju chakra rather than mere containment. Most significantly, his fundamental nature, compassionate but determined, powerful but humble, offers ideal temperament for authority without tyranny. That sounds like Naruto, Sakura acknowledged with fond exasperation. Always landing in the middle of cosmic catastrophes because he's too stubborn to let anyone else handle them. Indeed, Mito agreed, surprising them with gentle humor in her refined demeanor. Some characteristics transcend bloodlines. The Uzumaki tendency toward dramatic soludio NS appears consistently across generations. Her expression sobered as she continued. However, his current transition presents unique challenges. Divine consciousness must reconcile with human identity, maintaining connections that anchor his essential nature while adapting to cosmic perspective beyond mortal comprehension. Which is why we need to find him, Hinata stated with uncharacteristic assertiveness. He shouldn't face this transformation alone. Precisely why I have returned, Mito confirmed. My experiences as first Jinchuriki provide perspective unavailable elsewhere. The challenges of containing immense power while maintaining human connection parallel those Naruto now faces on cosmic scale. Before further discussion could develop, all three women simultaneously sensed massive chakra surge originating from Konoha's center. The energy signature contained unmistakable characteristics: warm, bright, and fundamentally protective despite its overwhelming magnitude. Naruto. All three whispered in unintentional unison. His consciousness returns focus to Konoha, Mito observed, rising gracefully. Let us proceed to the manifestation point. Your presence will help ensure his awareness to human connections during this critical phase. Without waiting for response, she moved toward compound exit with fluid grace that belied her historical age. Sakura and Hinata followed immediately. Professional caution temporarily subordinated to shared concern for the young man whose cosmic evolution had apparently reshaped reality sufficiently to resurrect legendary figures from Konoha's founding era. Just to be clear, Sakura muttered to Hinata as they hurried toward village center, "We're following the mysteriously reincarnated first Hokage's wife to meet our friend, who's apparently become some kind of chakra deity." Hinata's response carried unexpected warmth despite their extraordinary circumstances. Would you expect anything less complicated when Naruto's involved? The shared moment of affectionate exasperation created brief normality amid cosmic upheaval, precisely the human connection that would soon prove essential to the Guardian's continued blank. Between divine purpose and human heart. Kakashi Hatake had experienced numerous extraordinary events throughout his storied career, witnessed impossibilities, faced legendary monsters, and confronted literal gods during the Fourth Shinobi War. None had prepared him for the sight currently materializing above Hokage Tower. A massive column of golden light descended from luminous sky patterns, coalescing into distinct humanoid form 20 meters tall. The figure radiated chakra beyond quantifiable measurement yet contained unmistakably familiar characteristics: blonde hair, whiskered cheeks, and expression combining determination with underlying compassion that had transformed a village outcast into its greatest protector. "Naruto," Kakashi acknowledged, maintaining outward calm despite internal astonishment as gathered shinobi and civilians stared upward in collective amazement. The manifestation smiled, the expression simultaneously cosmic and intimately recognizable, before acting with voice that resonated through physical and spiritual dimensions simultaneously. "Sorry about the dramatic entrance, Kakashi-sensei," it began with characteristically informal address despite godlike appearance. Still figuring out how to dial back the divine aspects when communicating. Despite extraordinary circumstances, Kakashi found himself responding with habitual dry humor. Naruto, most shinobi file mission reports when returning to the village. Becoming a deity seems slightly excessive, even for you. The manifestation laughed. The sound carrying harmonic frequencies had inexplicably soothed chakra networks of everyone who heard it. "Yeah, well, you know me. Never do things halfway." Growing serious, the massive figure gestured toward the transformed sky. "I needed to speak with you directly. The changes affecting Konoha, affecting the entire world, weren't planned, but they are necessary. The planetary chakra network was approaching critical failure following Kaguya's sealing. And you've become what, exactly?" Kakashi questioned directly, aware of every shinobi and civilian hanging on this exchange. The Shinju Guardian, Naruto's manifestation, answered simply. The divine tree regulated chakra balance before Kaguya consumed its fruit. Without that regulatory function, the entire system has been slowly destabilizing for generations. Someone needed to assume the guardian role before complete collapse occurred. And naturally, you volunteered, Kakashi observed with resignation that poorly masked underlying pride in his former student's unfailing selflessness. The manifestation shrugged, a strangely human gesture from a cosmic entity. Less volunteered, more, only available option to prevent catastrophe. But yeah, basically. Before Kakashi could respond, the crowd parted as three women approached, Hinata and Sakura accompanied by a figure whose appearance caused genuine shock to register on the Hokage's normally impassive face. Mito Uzumaki, he identified. Visible eye widening. How? A consequence of restored chakra pathways, Naruto's manifestation explained, its massive form shifting focus to the newcomers. As proper flow returns to ancient networks, certain echoes have rematerialized. Mito-sama's consciousness remained connected to fundamental chakra structures she helped establish during Konoha's founding. The manifestation's expression softened noticeably upon seeing Hinata and Sakura, its overwhelming presence becoming somehow more personal despite cosmic scale. "Hinata, Sakura, I'm sorry for disappearing without explanation. Everything happened so quickly." "We understand," Hinata replied with gentle assurance that carried through the hushed crowd. "But please remember, you don't have to shoulder this burden alone. However you've changed, whatever you've become, you're still Naruto to us." The manifestation seemed to waver slightly, cosmic light momentarily revealing more human characteristics as though her words had temporarily bridged divine and mortal aspects of his existence. That means more than you know, Naruto responded, genuine emotion resonating through harmonic frequencies. Maintaining human connections while adapting to divine perception is challenging. Which is precisely why such connections must be preserved, Mito interjected formally, addressing the manifestation directly. The Shinju Guardian requires human anchors to prevent losing individual identity within cosmic awareness. History demonstrates the consequences of divine isolation all too clearly. Naruto's manifestation nodded acknowledgement. You're right. That's partly why I've returned focus to Konoha, to reinforce connections that define my humanity while divine aspects continue establishing proper regulation. Turning attention back to Kakashi, the manifestation continued. I need to request something officially, as Hokage. The Shinju sapling in the northern forest requires protection while it establishes connections to global chakra networks. It's not just a tree but a physical manifestation of regulatory systems being restored. Consider it done, Kakashi agreed immediately. Anything else? People will have questions about these changes. Fear might lead to misunderstanding without proper context. The manifestation gestured toward Mito. Mito-sama possesses historical knowledge about chakra's original purpose before Hidden Village systems distorted natural patterns. Her perspective could help people understand these transformations represent restoration rather than revolution. I shall serve as historical advisor regarding these developments, Mito confirmed with formal bow toward the current Hokage. My unexpected return appears connected to precisely this purpose. Before further discussion could develop, the manifestation suddenly tensed, attention shifting toward distant horizons beyond visual perception. I need to go. Major chakra disruption forming near Wind Country's eastern border. If left unaddressed, it could affect weather patterns across 3 nations. Do what you need to do, Kakashi assured him. Konoha stands with you, as always. The mass. I've figure nodded gratitude before addressing the gathered crowd directly. I remain Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha, despite cosmic responsibilities. This village remains my home, its people my precious ones. Trust that all changes serve protection rather than control. With those parting words, the manifestation dissolved into particles of golden light that spiraled upward before disappearing entirely, leaving behind atmosphere simultaneously charged with awe and lingering warmth characteristic of Naruto's natural presence. As the crowd began dispersing into excited discussion groups, Kakashi approached the 3 women standing where the manifestation had focused particular attention. Mito-sama, he addressed the legendary figure respectfully. Your return represents unprecedented development requiring extensive discussion. Indeed, she acknowledged regally. Though perhaps focusing first on practical implications rather than metaphysical causation would serve immediate needs more effectively. Agreed. Kakashi turned to Sakura and Hinata. Your insights regarding Naruto's transformation could prove invaluable given your connections to him. Would you be willing to join an advice or council addressing these developments? Both women nodded immediately, determination evident in their expressions. Before they could verbalize agreement, Hinata suddenly gasped, Byakugan activati. Ing spontaneously as she perceived something beyond normal visual range. What is it? Sakura questioned with immediate concern. Naruto, Hinata whispered, eyes focusing on something others couldn't perceive. Not the manifestation, but his actual physical form. I can see him briefly through some kind of dimensional window. Where? Kakashi demanded, strategic implications immediately apparent. Everywhere and nowhere, Hinata answered, struggling to articulate perception beyond conventional understanding. He exists between dimensions, working to stabilize major disruptions throughout the chakra network. But his physical body, it's changing, adapting to channel divine energy that would normally incinerate mortal form. Her expression reflected complex mixture of awe and concern. He's becoming something beyond human while fighting to retain his humanity. And the strain is significant. Mito nodded solemnly. As expected, divine transformation traditionally requires relinquishing mortal limitations entirely. Naruto attempts unprecedented balance, maintaining human heart while wielding cosmic authority. Can we help him? Sakura questioned directly, medical instincts. Focusing on practical intervention despite metaphysical context. More than you realize, Mito confirmed. His connections to those he loves represent essential anchors preventing loss of individual identity within universal consciousness. You are not merely emotional supports but functional necessities for successful integration of human and divine aspects. Hinata's Byakugan deactivated as the dimensional glimpse faded. But her expression remained resolved rather than discouraged. Then we need to establish reliable communication channels, ways to reach him regardless of dimensional separation. The Shinju sapling provides most direct connection, Mito explained. Through that physical manifestation, his consciousness remains accessible regardless of where cosmic responsibilities focus his attention. Then that's where we start, Sakura determined with characteristic decisiveness. If Naruto needs anchors to his humanity, we'll make sure he has the strongest ones possible. The small group began formulating practical approaches to unprecedented circumstances. Civilian and shinobi populations throughout Konoha adjusted to new reality with varying reactions, some with religious awe, others with scientific curiosity, most with fundamental trust based on their relationships with the young man who had repeatedly saved their village before ascending to cosmic guardianship. Throughout these discussions, the sky continued its luminous display as chakra networks progressively rebalanced under new guidance. Within this atmospheric phenomenon, particularly sensitive observers occasionally glimpsed something extraordinary, a massive spectral tree spreading protective branches across the entire world, its roots connecting all living things through golden energy that felt unmistakably warm, bright, and inherently protective, precisely as expected from anything bearing Naruto Uzumaki's essential signature, regardless of cosmic scale. In Uzumaki compound archives, long after formal meetings concluded and immediate concerns had been addressed, Mito knelt alone before an ancient sealing array accessible only to those carrying specific chakra resonance activati. In the array with precisely modulated energy, she materialized a scroll sealed with symbols representing cosmic balance established during humanity's earliest interaction with chakra. So it begins again, she murmured, studying prophetic text describing cyclic relationship between human and divine aspects of universal energy. Though not as the ancients foresaw, the scroll contained earliest recorded covenant between mortal realm and cosmic forces, agreement establishing original Shinju as regulatory system rather than controlling authority. Passages specifically described eventual ascensio of human consciousness to guardian role, though original authors clearly envisioned gradual evolutionary process rather than crisis-driven transformation. Your path follows no established pattern, Naruto Uzumaki, Mito observed to absent guardian whose influence nevertheless permeated the very air around her. Neither fully divine nor entirely human, but something new entirely. Returning the scroll to its interdimensional storage space, Mito reflected on cosmic implications of unexpected guardian, one whose defining characteristic remained compassionate connection rather than detached authority. Throughout recorded history, power invariably corrupted those who wielded it, cosmic power most catastrophically of all. Yet something about this particular transformation suggested different potential outcome. Evolution guided by heart rather than ambition, protective rather than controlling, fundamentally collaborative despite unprecedented individual capability. Perhaps, Mito consighed, read as compound seals responded automatically to her preparations for rest, that represents the most significant transformation of all. Outside, Konoha adjusted to first night under new cosmic reality, luminous sky patterns providing gentle illumination that somehow promoted peaceful sleep rather than disturbing it. Throughout the village, citizens reported unprecedented dreams connecting them to global consciousness, not through imposed control but via harmonious awareness of underlying unity typically obscured by individual perception. As physical realm rested, cosmic aspects continued necessary rebalancing, guided by consciousness that maintained essential humanity despite divine expansion. Between dimensions, Naruto Uzumaki addressed critical disruptions while simultaneously monitoring emotional well-being of every precious person whose connection anchored his individual identity amid universal awareness. The unprecedented integration of human heart with divine authority continued evolving, establishing new paradigm unforeseen by even the most ancient prophetic texts. Cosmic power filtered through compassionate intention represented evolutionary step beyond either human limb itation or divine detachment, synthesis rather than compromise, transcendence rather than transformation. Dawn would bring new challenges as global political systems processed fundamental changes affecting their very foundations. Yet underlying these concerns, restored chakra networks continued healing damage accumulated through generations of imbalance, guided by Guardian whose defining quality remained unfailing determination to protect rather than control. The world awakened gradually to new reality, one where cosmic forces served life rather than demanding service, where ancient harmony gone restoring balance disrupted through centuries of conflict. And at the center of this fundamental shift stood consciousness that began as village outcast before expanding to universal guardian without ever relinquishing essential dedication to precious connections. Truly unprecedented transformation, yet somehow perfectly consistent with everything Naruto Uzumaki had always represented: unpredictable, unorthodox, and fundamentally transformative through unwavering commitment to bonds others considered impossible. The sun rose over changed world, golden light merging seamlessly with Lumino's chakra networks now visible in daylight hours. A new era had begun, not through revolution but restoration, guided by divine authority tempered by fundamentally human heart. Chapter 3 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.